welcome to Motivational Monday. Today's topic is financial freedom for millennials. I have invited my mother, Tina. She's been an accountant my whole life, and she is really good with helping people figure out their finances, even when it looks like living paycheck to paycheck is the only option. So I felt it was important to discuss how people in our age group can work towards being financially free. So this is Tina, my mother.
Hey everybody, how are you?
They can't.
They can't hear me?
They can't respond.
I said, how are you?
That's the question.
Rhetorical. Moving forward.
Okay. So we'll start the conversation with the first question. What is the best advice that you have for young people?
Well, young people, define that.
Millennials, so people in their 20s and 30s.
Currently in their 20s and 30s.
Correct.
Well, there's two kinds of groups. There are, I got to figure out this backward thing. There are two groups. Sorry, I'm a little silly. You have millennials who are children free and family free, if you will. And then you have millennials who are obligated with responsibilities beyond themselves.
Okay.
So which group would you like to speak to first? Because they're different things.
Let's speak to the people without the family obligations first, and then we'll go into how it changes when you have a family aspect.
Oh, that works. Okay, so what's your first question?
So what's the best piece of advice that you have for people in their 20s and 30s still figuring out their finances and how to have financial stability?
Basically, watch what you're spending and why you're spending. That's the biggest thing. I think people spend. I think people spend and don't even realize what they spent because you're either swiping or you're just hanging out and you expect that you're supposed to be entitled to do certain things, and you can to a point, but you have to be responsible. So have a delicate balance between them both. So the biggest thing would be watch what you're doing, and the best way to watch what you're doing is by actually setting it aside.
But if I'm in my 20s and I'm out of school and I don't have that family obligation, I should be able to do anything that I want to do.
After your bills are paid.
Fair enough.
I'm just saying. Work hard, play hard. And it's totally fine. Do what you have to do, but you have to take care of what you need to take care of. And I think the best next step, if you're working, hopefully you are. I mean, if you're living in your parents' home versus living on your own, those are two different dynamics as well. Mm-hmm. If you're living at home, by all means, you should be setting aside to be independent. Mm-hmm. And you should also be preparing for your retirement and creating the least amount of taxable income, all while you can do so without having any obligations to it. No house note, no, you may have a car note, you may have student loans, those are natural. But outside of that, you should be setting aside pre-tax dollars so that you're not paying as much income taxes.
So if I'm 30, 40 years away from retirement, mm-hmm. why should I even think about that? That doesn't bother me.
Because it's time value of money. So what the trick is, and this is what a lot of people don't get, even adults, well, you all are adults, but even
old folk,
them too, you can't replace time. If I put $20 away today and save it into a growing institution where interest is compounding, that $20 is going to look, I haven't done the calculations, but that money will grow a lot longer for a longer period of time than waiting 20 years to put that same $20 away.
Okay.
So you could put a lot less in now.
And it mean more later.
Exactly. And then to try and catch up when you're 30 or 40, okay, I'm getting my life together. Okay, I'm ready now. You've lost that time. And now you have to put in, instead of the 20, you might need to put in 200.
And on top of that, you have mortgages and families.
Right.
And
life has happened. I call it life. Life has begun to happen.
Okay. So what about people in their 20s and 30s? What's your advice for them who do have that family dynamic, either through marriage, through kids, through even some young millennials have to support their parents because of whatever situation, if they're older or sick or something of that nature?
Wow, I wouldn't think a 20-year-old would have to take care of
Well,
the parent.
30s.
Okay, well, you got to take care of what you're responsible for first.
Okay.
You can't. It's almost like the airplane thing. If you can't take care of you, you can't take care of anybody else. Point blank and simple. When you have children, it's a very easy way to say, well, my baby need this, my kids need that, my kids need that, and that is true. But then you have to define need.
Okay.
And I think that's the biggest mistake. Another big mistake people make: a need versus a want.
Like, my kids need shoes, but do they need Jordans?
And do they need 4 pair because they were on sale?
Okay. So, what do you think is the biggest mistake people make financially?
Overspending.
What do you mean?
Getting into debt. Not being consciously present in their financial life.
I can attest to that because I think prior to the past, 6 months, I would spend and rack up debt and not even think about it. Whereas now it is a more conscious environment where I each paycheck I have it specifically dedicated to this bill, this bill, this bill.
Oh, how'd you do that? Oh, sorry. I'm sorry, people. No shade, no tea.
All shade, all tea. But we can go there. So I personally hit what I consider financial rock bottom. And without going into too many specifics, I felt like I was hopeless financially. And with that, her and I sat down and came up with a detailed plan. And the goals were to pay off my debt, to start saving, and to be able to enjoy life because I do work really hard. And so it wouldn't be fair to do all work and no play. So having the ability to juggle all three between paying off debt, savings, and fun, those were my top goals. And so with that, we came up with a template. This check, you pay these bills, this amount goes to savings, and this amount goes to your discretionary funds. And that, even after the time frame that you and I set up, I still created another one for myself. So it was something that I chose.
A model.
Right. I used that model and chose to duplicate it with my own ability. So it became part of my lifestyle as opposed to just a temporary fix because I saw the results of what was happening. My credit has gone up. I've cleared out a lot of my debt.
How much did it grow up? Like
100 points in 6 months.
That's huge. And why is that important? I'm going to interject for a second, but don't forget that. Your credit score is very important. And you may not think about it. You think about it recklessly. You might have never been told, which I believe is a lot of it. Knowledge is power. So to backtrack one step, now Tiara lived with me in my house, in my child. So I assumed by default she picked up some things along the way. So that was my error in not having that deep conversation like you and we're having with you guys now. So it's important to actually even have the conversation. So why are credit scores important? Credit scores determine your insurance payment on what you pay on your insurance. Credit scores determine how much you are paying back anybody. If your car loans, you'll see the commercial 0% down and $269 a month. Well, that doesn't apply.
If you have great interest,
great credit rather. And if you don't, it's because you decided to eat out on that credit card. And how much did that really cost you because you didn't really pay it back?
20%
or more. 26% some rates are.
Yeah. And an example of that, so I use this example to hold myself accountable. So my grandmother bought her card interest free.
Right. And paid it off.
In 18 months?
I believe so.
Somewhere around there.
And she's retired, by the way.
Correct. So A, that shows that she has good credit. And B, she has good money management to be able to pay off an entire car in a year and a half, 2 years, let's just say. Whereas in my situation, my interest rate is about 21% on a car. That's extra money simply because I made the wrong decisions and I didn't have to.
No, you didn't. Right. And don't. Here's the next big thing. Don't beat yourself up. Just start where you are. Mm-hmm. You have to. It is what it is. It's done. What's done has been done. You just got to keep moving forward. You got to keep moving. You can't stop and get stagnant and get woe is me and then go shopping.
Right. And that's what I hope to gain from sharing this video, is to help us learn how to grow, how to move forward. Did you answer the question? The biggest mistake?
I don't know that there's a biggest.
Being unconscious about your financials.
Right. Not knowing, not being present in your financial life.
Okay. So what can I do if I'm already living paycheck to paycheck and I feel like there is no extra money, there's nothing available, everything is spent?
We would first look at, what do you call everything is spent? Mm-hmm. And what do you say everything is paycheck to paycheck? So really, be honest with yourself. Mm-hmm. Write out everything. What do you owe? How much is it?
How much is the interest on what you owe?
Right. What do you owe? What do you have to, what are your standard bills? Standard bills, your cell phone's not going anywhere, but maybe we can downsize, because I think we did that with you.
Yep, I had 2 lines. I lowered that and lowered how many gigabytes I was paying for.
That you didn't need. I mean, Is it really important to surf on the phone when you have your computer and your tablet and your dot? Mm-hmm. Do you really need that much money going out to cover that? That's the first thing. So one, we look at, what are you spending money on? The best way to look at that is to look back 3 to 4 months. Mm-hmm. Let's look at everything. Right. Pull the bank statements, pull the records, pull the credit card statements, pull everything.
One helpful hint that we've learned over time is using mint.com. And not to do this as, we're really not, but it's really helpful, because if you have everything connected, like all of your bank accounts connected, it will show you all of your transactions and it'll categorize everything. So this month, out of all your credit cards, all your bank cards, you spent X amount of dollars in food, X amount of dollars in this.
And I think when you look at that, you're going to be like, holy smokes, I ate 30% of my income.
Absolutely.
Eating out. Was it really that important?
Correct.
Yes, you can go out to eat. Yes, you can still have that drink on Friday if that's what you choose. Yes, you can still go to that movie. But do you need to do that 5 days a week and pay for your friends?
Right.
And that might be a need in your book, but it really isn't.
And I think the biggest piece of the next step is being honest with yourself, because it took me years to truly have an honest conversation. And a part of that was I was almost humiliated, because here I am, my mother's an accountant, and I feel like a financial failure. So it had to take a moment of humility to be able to say, listen, I'm struggling. I don't know what I'm doing. Here's the truth about my financial situation. Can you help me? You just had a moment. What was it?
I forgot. I was trying to write it down. Oh, well. Anyway, you had said something about being honest. Well, anyway, it'll come back.
So we were saying about being honest with your spending and seeing, is what you're spending actually necessary?
So that's the first step. So if you think you're living paycheck to paycheck, which you might be, where's the money going? And if you truly find, like you said, being honest with yourself, you truly find your cell phone, your rent, your gas for your car, and your
groceries,
electricity, standard insurance, things that cannot change, things you have to pay no matter what. Those are the bills I'm talking about. If you truly find that your paycheck equals that money, then you need to do something and look at your time. What is your hobby? What is your activity? There's so many different venues for you guys. You might need to do Lyft. You might need to do Uber or whatever it is that you're good at. You might need to babysit some kids once a week or whatever it takes. You have more income. Right. You have to find a way to earn more income. And then that's another thing. Let's look at what you're earning. Are you being paid enough? Mm-hmm. Are you underpaid because you have a job and you think that's all you're worth? Don't know. If it is, if that's your skill set, that's your skill set. Then that's another conversation. But what I guess the biggest thing people need to understand is, I keep saying the biggest thing. Well,
a lot of big things here. Okay, big things are happening.
Another big thing that people have to realize is know your worth, know your market, and if you're not being paid what you should be paid, then you need to change.
Absolutely.
Being a millennial, good God, y'all got the rest of your life to go. There's nothing holding you back, especially if you're not obligated with family responsibilities, meaning children, husband, mortgage.
Right. So let's talk about for a second the thing. So you have your car's not going to change, the phone's not going to change, bills like that.
Well, car might change, phone might change.
Okay. So other than the hard bills, like let's talk about
Utilities.
the flexible bills such as groceries.
Mhm.
You have to eat, but let's talk about a little bit how you can eat smartly, because my biggest weakness financially is food. I like to eat, and I like to be able to eat what I want and think nothing of it. So how do we have best of both worlds in that scenario?
You have to measure where you are. So, one, be honest with yourself. If you know you only have $100 for the whole month left,
Which starts from having financial consciousness.
right, being present there. If you, let's say you have $100, you can blow that in one night, one weekend, or 1 month.
Right. Well, how do I make that $100 last all month? What do I need to do to get there?
This is the $100 going out and eat,
or no. $100 on. Let's say I have in my budget, I can spend $100 on food for the month.
Okay. You shop wise.
Okay. What does that mean?
There was a time I remember you bought some cereal.
Okay.
And this may sound petty, and it may sound frugal, and it may sound super cheap, but it does work. I like to look at it like, what did I tell you? You pay.
You're cheap on what you need so that you can live freely for what you want.
Right.
That's balling on a budget 101. Got a class coming soon.
You pay for what you need. Why would I buy cereal at Safeway, Giant, Food Lion, whoever, for a 16-ounce box of cereal? There might be $3.29. Might be. Mm-hmm. I'm using numbers. I'm guessing.
They're probably accurate.
Because I do. You got to know your item pricing. You got to know how much stuff costs. So you can't just go shopping and be like, oh, that's a good price. And the biggest pet peeve I have, well, one of the pet peeves I have, when people like even go to the commissary, oh, that was cheap. That pack of meat only cost $9. Well, how much was it per pound?
I don't know.
So did you get a deal or not?
I don't know.
Exactly. So, sorry, sidetrack. But
so knowing the unit prices is the moral of her pet peeve. So understanding that it may be on sale for that store, but is it on sale in general?
Is that a good price for what you're buying? You got to know your price points. And so if you go to Walmart, Target is a little more expensive.
Not Target. Target's expensive.
But not as some of those items there, they have more expensive clothes items.
Sure do.
But their merchandise is pretty much, going to be around Walmart's prices. Mm-hmm. So that same brand of cereal for $2.99, you might remember we said it was like a 18 to 20 ounce box, I think.
It was a bigger box for less money.
So the 18, let's say 20 ounce box costs $3.29 at Safeway. You're gonna get a 36 ounce box for $2.99 at Walmart.
Right.
So what do? Cereal. We know how much cereal we're gonna eat. You know how long it's gonna take.
Right.
So we've saved 2 boxes. Basically, we got a box free.
Right.
Essentially.
Right. And one thing that I will say that I picked up from my mother is the concept of buying in bulk. And a lot of times we don't think about it because you just go to the grocery store and pick it up.
Because you need it.
Exactly.
However, if you plan it, you got to know what you're planning for.
Right. And one example of that, I remember in my house in Charlotte, somebody, I used to buy like the biggest packaging of toilet paper you can get, biggest packaging of paper towels, things that I use all the time and that are not going to spoil and go bad. I buy as big a set as I can, but I only bought tissue twice a year. And someone came in my house and they were like, why do you have so much tissue? I'm like, because it was cheap. Right. And it's going to last, 4 to 6 months. And, the laundry detergent. And I like bacon, so I buy bacon in bulk. No judgment. And then, the things that trash bags, those expenses, you spread it out over 6 months. And even though I paid more that day, but I only had to do big shopping twice a year.
So that twice a year could be refund time, which you
Mhm.
should be getting a big refund. But let's just
That's a
go
whole
there.